it's a tiny bit scary in terms of, does it ever motivate, some crazy physical attack? The notion that I care about people's locations, why would I want to microchip people? At first you just have to laugh, but then, as it affects people's willingness to take vaccines or wear masks, or just directs them in the wrong direction in terms of how we solve these problems, that it's this evil person behind the curtain, and if we just got rid of them, the problem would go away. That's a misdirection. And the scale of it during the pandemic, the only explanation I could have is that yes, people are under a lot of stress. It's a horrific thing, and they're looking for a simple explanation.
You and I have talked before, and I know that you've explored this for a long time, which is geoengineering, and especially solar engineering, where you essentially build artificial volcanoes, to put it simply, and put particles in the sky to cool things down. You've been a supporter of this for a while, in research of this. It's gaining momentum in the sort of scientific establishment. National Academy of Sciences is doing a study now. The IPCC has been talking about it. What have you learned about it in your research on this? And are you feeling more like we're inevitably heading in this direction?
Well, no. Most aspects of climate, like there was a re-examination of the temperature data because people said that East Anglia had played with the numbers. So the Koch brothers and I funded Mueller to go back through and do it from scratch, and he said no bias, no. So I fund a lot of things, anything that looks promising client. So saying I support it, that in the sense that yes, I provide money so that we can look into it, yes. In terms of, is it a technique that we understand enough about its overall weather effects, and wouldn't it be better just to get rid of the emissions and not have to put this in place? I don't support it because there's so little we know about it. And of course, governments would have to decide. If things got really bad and, people in the equator can't grow food and hundreds of millions are migrating, the world will look for some way of delaying the heating, and having some notion whether these various either brightening cloud tops or particles in the stratosphere, even if it's just to disprove that it's not a good thing, I don't believe in making it a verboten topic. And right. Governments really ought to dig into it and fund some activities around it so that they, if the time ever came where it was an emergency, they could consider whether to use it or not to use it not in a completely naive way. But I right. only gave it one page in the book because it is fair to say that if people think there's some panacea thing, like, a heart operation, bariatric surgery, then maybe they just keep eating. And that is not the way to go on this one. Well, the negative effects accumulate over time. And, so if you keep putting CO2 in, you get arbitrary increases in temperature. And, the natural ecosystems won't survive that. The sea level rise will be very gigantic. You won't be able to live anywhere near the equator. And so certainly humans, if you want, anywhere near the current population, you've got to intercede and not let the heating go on and on. So the nuanced question is, how bad is it in any particular time frame? And, the corals are probably gone. Most of the beaches we know, will be gone. The wildfires, the drying out of the internal air of the continents, you'd really like, say, southern India to stay livable, for people to be able to farm there. If not, you're talking about a panic migration that creates, civil war and unrest that's, 100 times worse than what the Syrian civil war did, which that was, tragic and quite a disruption. So, you just tell me, I'll give you a year for however bad you want it to be. If you let it go unchecked, it gets essentially arbitrarily bad. Now, the planet itself is actually pretty robust. And somebody living alone, in northern Canada, they might be okay. The animals might all die off, but maybe they can grow some stuff. So it's super bad, and how you educate people on that, it does involve often, like in the ice melting case, getting off into time frames that are way out in the future. Why are young people more engaged in the topic now? Is it because they're learning more science? Is it because they know that the probability of these various weather events are higher? We really need the younger generation to be deeply committed to this thing so that the political priority stays high in all the rich countries for almost all of the next 30 years. That's the magic ingredient that when I say to Shmuel, hey, yes, you don't see in the history anything like this happening, but you didn't have a whole generation of kids who it was a moral belief beyond their own individual success that they knew that this was important and that they were pushing, so if 30% of young people are like Greta and are willing to put the time in, then we are going to take this very seriously, like a war or a pandemic. The numbers are way worse than the pandemic. I mean, the death rate is way beyond this pandemic and just getting worse every year, and you don't have a vaccine to get out of it. Yeah, so both myself and Dr. Fauci have featured in conspiracy theories. Like one says that Dr. Fauci's trying to make money off of these vaccines and various negative things about me. You're encouraging people not to trust the advice on masks or taking the vaccine, and that could be damaging. It's a new phenomena. I don't know, will it hurt the vaccine uptake where everyone who takes the vaccine is not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal? So it's a completely unexpected phenomena. And, sadly, a lot of it's based on false information. Humanity owes it to itself to get rid of malaria. Whenever you make mistakes, you have to learn from them. And the U.S. has so much talent, so much ability to get things right, so much ability to lead the world and help. Almost every infectious disease event of the last 100 years, the U.S. Played a very strong role. The CDC is the most respected health organization. In this one, we didn't set a good example, and we even withdrew from the WHO. So, it wasn't our finest hour, but I remain optimistic, and I look at the new team that's engaged, looking at the science, being willing to deliver the bad news that the next few months are going to continue to be tough. And, I feel great that we're correcting some of the mistakes that were made.